Well, hello. Today I'd like to talk to you about Thomas Isern's book, Pacing Dakota. And just for something different, I actually have already recorded the book review with the scenery of North Dakota flowing by in the background. So it'll be kind of like a driving video. But this is Pacing Dakota by Thomas D. Isern. Just a kind of an interesting little, I don't know what you would call it. But anyway, let's check out the video. So this book, like this video footage, comes from a time before COVID. The footage comes from 2019 when I was driving up to take a class in Minot. So we're on Highway 41, somewhere north of Turtle Lake and south of Velva. And the book comes from 2018. So, as this footage definitely illustrates, viewers of my channel know that I live in a small town in a rural area. We're not quite at the edge of the earth, but you can see it from here. And many of you have seen my driving videos or my pens on the road. You may have noticed I have a sort of a penchant for visiting small towns. I'll often get off the highway, walk around, or drive around small towns. What you don't see is I usually buy a newspaper while I'm in that small town because I want to read their small town newspapers. Yeah, I'm exciting. And that's something I have in common with Thomas Isern. He shares his interest in the forgotten spots in North Dakota, and he talks about their history and their present. Now, I found at times that this book seemed disjointed, and by the nature of how it was made, I suppose that would happen, because it's built from his radio scripts he has a show on Prairie Public Radio, which is what we call NPR here in North Dakota. It's a show called Plains Folks. So he built a book out of those. Now, he knows the prairie. He's a farm boy from western Kansas. He is now a professor of history at North Dakota State University in Fargo, and his specialty is on the history and folklore of the Great Plains. And I'm quoting that from the book. In the book, he describes the library of letters and articles at the university, which sounds pretty wild. Now, the book mixes history and modern day sometimes almost interchangeably. It's like you're wandering down the back streets and unpaved roads of a town. Like a general goal, I want to see it, but no overall plan. I'm not saying that's a fault, because history is what informs the present. I'm just saying that is for his... That grammared really badly, but that is how his book is. You may guess he has a lot of eastern North Dakota in his book because he is based in Fargo, and you would be right. But he doesn't forget western or central North Dakota. My own town gets several mentions. I was trying to see if there was any kind of bias in the book for one end of the state or the other, but if it was there, it wasn't obvious. And I wouldn't blame him for having a slightly eastern bias if he did, because it takes forever to get across this state. And, I have a western bias on my channel because it takes forever to get across this state. But the story in it include things like the First Lady Laura Bush visiting the Lutheran Church in Sims, North Dakota. Which, if you know where that is, yeah, it's kind of interesting that she wound up in a place like Sims, North Dakota. Another story is the adventures of a traveling preacher in eastern North Dakota during the late 1800s. And actually, that brings up a fun fact. Fargo was once the divorce capital of the United States because you could get a quick divorce with only a limited residence requirement. And he tells some of those stories too. One theme he doesn't shy away from is rural decay. He is well aware that the small towns are emptying out and drying up. He talks about all the empty places in Gascoigne. In fact, he calls it gap-toothed looking. Or the old hotel in Mott burning down. But he also explores, some of the unique local artifacts. As an example, in the town of everything in North Dakota is a city. In the city of New Rockford, there is a Depression-era mural in the post office. And he gets into the history of the artist and some of the other works that the artist had done, and how it doesn't quite fit New Rockford, but that's what New Rockford has. Or there's a pit silo near Almont that you can see from the interstate, which I've driven past it several times, a lot of times. I never noticed it, so now I got to notice it. And a lot about current culture. He talks about the Christmas in July at St. Andrew's Lutheran Church in McIntosh County, which I was amused his dog disrupted, because his dog got tired of waiting in the pickup and came in to join him. A play at Mott High School, which he called it Mott High School, so I don't know if that's before it became Mott Regent or if it was still just Mott at that time, because they consolidated with nearby Regent quite a number of years ago, actually. Talks about a smelt fry in Grandin, North Dakota. Toward the end of the book, he does step into slightly more dangerous waters, I suppose. He addresses some of the outside perspectives of North Dakota. And one thing he says, he does not like to talk to outside media. People will call from out of state, I'm doing an article here in New York about North Dakota, and I wondered if you'd make a few comments. And he's like, nope. And part of his concern is that generally the story is already written. They're calling from New York. They're not here in North Dakota. Generally it's based on some kind of a template. One of the templates he mentions was set by National Geographic in 2008 with an article called The Emptied Prairie. He called it grossly selective. That's in quotes now. And then he contrasts it with articles on the fracking frenzy. And of course the book was published in 2018 in National Geographic article called Bakken Shale Oil, the New Oil Landscape. And I remember that article. Or a 1987 article called Tough Times on the Prairie. He describes the article as essentially colonialist. Tough times for sure, and here are the people of the prairies carrying on in Norman Rockwell fashion, apparently oblivious of what the omniscient author knows, that their way of life is doomed, doomed, doomed. Yeah, that was a quote too. A little salty there. So he suggests actually just ignoring these requests. And more importantly, as North Dakotans, stop looking for external validation. We're never going to get it anyway. We need to live our life on our own terms. So he closes the book talking about the good life. Now, he makes it particular to the prairie in his book, but I felt there were his four main points were worth at least considering. One of his is that it has to be sensate. Enjoying life via all the senses. Taste, touch, smell, eyesight, hearing. I feel like I forgot one. Taste, touch, smell. I'll think of it as soon as I edit the video together. Enjoy the food of your area. Enjoy the smells of your area. The sounds. I don't think this microphone is picking it up because it's pretty selective. But there is a thunderstorm going on right now. It's to my north, so I'm not in it, but I love that sound. Things like that, or the quality of light that's out there right now is just amazing. Number 2, which definitely I agree with, the good life is literate. And of course that includes books and authors. Read widely. Read lots, but also taking the time, you're building up your knowledge this way, and take the time to reflect. And what that really does is it gives you a lot more perspective on everything, allows you to make everything you experience and everything you see a lot more meaningful. Learning the history of a place, you appreciate, that's why they do that there. Knowing about the politics helps explain things in an area. Knowing about the geology. Oh, that's why Wasky Squirrel lives in a place that has more ranches than eastern North Dakota. The geology. And the ecology, too. Basically anything. It just makes everything around you more meaningful. Everything. And that's why I feel sorry for people who just kind of shut their minds to knowledge and shut their minds to books. And, oh, I don't need that for nothing. Yeah, you do. It just makes your life richer. 3, social. Yeah, the good life, we need social ties. And as much as I enjoy interacting with you here on YouTube, that doesn't substitute for those real life people that I interact with. I mean, it's good that it's there. When I'm older, maybe it'll keep me from being lonely if I'm locked in my house or something, but it doesn't. You need those social ties. That's just part of a healthy life. And I could do a whole video on that, the science behind that. And then finally, it's just situational. I made this mistake in another town. I'm going to do the video on it soon. I lived in a little town. I won't give its name now, but you'll know when the video drops. You need to find the good and the comfort wherever you are, because it's there. You may not always be able to recognize it. You may be blinded to it for various reasons. You may have emotional reasons not to be able to find it, but it is there. And yeah, you may have the goal of, okay, I'm going to get out of here. Great. But in the meantime, you're there, so enjoy it. Take advantage of what's good about it. Because there is, unless you're in like North Korea or something, there's something good about it. So, anyway, if you enjoy, this is definitely a book that's never going to be a wide seller, but if you enjoy books of this sort, you may appreciate it. If you like the North Dakota thing, you may appreciate it more. Honestly, I wouldn't have picked it up at all, except it was suggested to me. So, I did. I'm glad I read it. I will probably keep it on my shelf to refer to, especially as I travel around the state. See, now, because I've read it, I will have a richer perspective as I travel around the state and see places like, oh, Thomas Isern talked about that in his book. That's where they have the smelt supper. Although it's probably unlikely I'll ever get to Grandin. If you know where Grandin is, you'd know why. It's on the interstate, and yeah, I'm not an interstate traveler if I don't have to be. Unless I have somewhere to get to, in which case there's more direct routes than through Grandin from where I live. So, sorry, I'm picking on Grandin. I have actually been there. True story. I rode with a load of, I think it was sunflower seeds, to the grain elevator there. When I was visiting somebody in the northern part of the state. So, yeah, that's weird that I've been to that town. So, yeah, if I'd known about the spelt fry, I would have just had that much more richer interpretation of it. So, there's a good example of what he's talking about. So, anyway, I hope that was interesting. And the book's a little bit hard to find, so I'm going to put a link to where it's sold on the NDSU website in the book description if you are so inclined. I know I have seen it on Amazon. I could not find it on Barnes & Noble. And what was the other one I tried? One of those more independent links that's down at the bottom I tried. I couldn't find it, and I said, okay, if they really want to find it, they can find it themselves. So, anyway, thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.